Welcome. This is the 19th show in a series of shows focusing on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the World Health Organization designated Brookline the first community in New England to be designated an age-friendly community city. This was a result of the work of the residents of Brookline, the select board, town departments, and a volunteer organization that provided leadership, Brookline Can, who provides benefits to residents of all ages in Brookline. Today we have two organizations represented that relate to the taxes in town. The tax department, the tax assessor, and the senior center. Both of them manage, and we have three guests from those organizations. Two from the town assessor, Gary McCabe and Karen Keeney, and one from the senior center, Dedra Waxman. Gary has been the town assessor since 2007, I believe. And he manages the real estate and the personal property assessments in town, and also manages the motor vehicle excise tax. He works with the town departments and the select board to determine tax rates and exemption amounts. He's also the chair of the Board of Assessors, who approve abatements and exemptions. And you'll find out what those are later in the show. You'll learn a number of new terms. Prior to Brookline, Gary worked for an international real estate company. He worked for the State Department of Revenue and other cities and towns. He also worked for a global services firm. Second, we have a town assistant assessor, and that's Karen Keeney. She's been 30 years a Brookline town employee. And for the last 10 years, she's been assisting older adult taxpayers in attaining and getting deferrals as part of the tax deferral program. Karen is excellent at working with people and ensuring that they get their paperwork submitted on time, and that matters, again, as you'll hear later. Dedra Waxman is a staff licensed social worker, clinical social worker for the Brookline Council on Aging and the Senior Center. She's been working there for 30 years, and during that time, she put together the REAP program. You may know that, I'm not sure, but the Retirement Engagement Alternative Program. And that includes work both as a volunteer and paid work. She's also the Senior Center Program Coordinator for the Tax Work-Off and Abatement Program since 2009. And that's actually pretty exciting, as are the others, and you'll hear about that later. Let's start off with Gary, and if you just address the topics for today.
All right, thank you, Matt. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to join you in this discussion. We appreciate the time today to talk about what we believe are two very important topics for homeowners in Brookline who are responsible for paying their property taxes.
Right.
The two programs that we're going to talk about today are the ability to defer your taxes, all or some of your taxes, until a later date, when you sell the property or you pass away and your heirs are responsible then for paying. If that makes sense, we want to make sure you know about this program. And the other program we're going to talk about, mostly administered through the Senior Center,
Right.
is the Senior Tax Work-Off Program. So there's an opportunity to reduce your tax through some volunteer commitment of hours and work in various town departments. So we'll today keep this discussion to those two topics. And you know, Karen, the assistant assessor in our office, works every day as needed with seniors on not only these two programs, but as we'll touch on towards the end, there are others. But today we're focusing on these two. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a high-level issue, so to speak, and
So
that's
just a,
yeah.
basically, we're talking about programs where you can get money instead of paying taxes. You can get a rebate of some sort, or you can get money back, and you can receive money rather than only just paying. If you're in the right position.
That's a good way of looking at it.
If you're in the right position.
Right. So one of those programs, the Senior Tax Work-Off Program, indeed could be viewed as you're receiving money, it's credit
Right.
towards your tax bill. And the amount of that is $1,500, or in some cases up to $1,500. If there's circumstances we can't quite get to that $1,500, that's okay. But in most cases with the volunteers in this program, they get to the $1,500. So $1,500, but it's a credit, but you don't have to pay that
Right.
$1,500. So the tax deferral program is a little different. It puts off this payment to down the road when the property can be used to help pay off this tax instead of the tax coming out of your limited income.
Makes
all right?
sense.
It makes sense to do that. But before we start getting into sort of the details of all this and the discussion of it, I want to put it in perspective, and that's the property tax responsibilities that all owners of property have in Brookline, particularly the homeowners in town who aren't businesses, so there's no opportunity to say, well, somebody else will pay this tax. No,
Right.
I have to pay it, right? And to put that in perspective, I just wanted to give you a sense of how that works from a town's perspective, right? So the town has a 12-month operating budget, and it's a fiscal year, like a financial year.
Right.
And it goes from July 1st each year to June 30 the following year. And it's called the fiscal year. And the most recently completed fiscal year, June 30, 2018, the town's budget was a little over $300 million, all right, to run this town. So, what do the residents get for that, that $300 million? Quite a bit, as it turns out.
Right.
Public education, public safety, public works are the headliners. Of that $300 million, a little over $200 million, or about 70% of the town's budget comes from property taxes. It's a local tax. It's not an income tax that the state is passing through, or a sales tax the state is passing through from these other more broad-based systems. It's a local property tax. And we want to make sure that our taxpayers understand that. If they have any questions about this local property tax, to come and see us
Right.
at Town Hall on the second floor, particularly with these relief programs or abatement programs. So, 70% of the town's annual budget comes from the town residents, particularly the owners. Although, someone sitting there saying, I'm a renter. I have an apartment and I rent my space.
Right.
Am I paying a property tax? That's a very good question, right? The answer is yes, you are. Not directly, but indirectly, right, through your rent. So I think everyone contributes to this over $200 million.
Right.
All right. So, we're going to break it out a little bit. We'll talk about tax deferral, deferring all or part of your tax, and then the senior work-off.
So basically, these are taxes every property owner, commercial, residential, every property owner in town pays property taxes.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Everyone.
I'll give you an example. So, as an example, if the assessed value of your home, and we're responsible for that, determining this assessed value, and that assessed value is based on sale prices, primarily of
Right.
comparable properties. If the assessed value of your home is $1 million, and that's not a shocking number
No, it's a
anymore.
shack.
Yeah.
No,
It's
not that big. It's not big.
It's not even the average home,
Right.
as it turns out. But say it's $1 million, which is something we can use to explain this. So
Can I ask you a question?
please,
If it's $1 million and I bought that house 30 years ago, what's it likely that I paid for it?
30 years ago,
Right.
less than 50,000.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. It's amazing what's
Yeah,
happened.
I-
I mean, an economist could tell you the annual rate of increase, and we're fortunate we have an economist on our Board of Assessors,
Gee.
so that's helpful, Dr. Peterson. But to use that $1 million, and that's a good point, actually, Matt, that the assessment isn't what you paid for your house 30 years ago. It's what you could sell it for today.
Right.
It's the other end of the range.
Right.
It's called a value and exchange-based assessment, what that property would sell for in the marketplace. And it's an estimate made by us, the assessors. But let's say it's $1 million. The tax on that $1 million is roughly $10,000 a year, every year, to the owner of that property. So if you have a limited income, say your income's, 30,000,
Right.
right? If it is, you're paying third of your income in property taxes. And we know that is a burden on
Right.
some of our,
Yeah, Social
particularly our
Security,
senior
yeah.
taxpayers. So this deferral program, if you qualify, and we'll talk about the qualifications. Karen will go into some detail on this. If you
Yeah, I'm-
qualify, you can defer all of that 10,000 or part of it.
Right.
And you can make that decision every year, right? You could say, well, this year I think maybe I can cover it,
Yeah, right.
but maybe next year you can't. So this is a regular annual consideration that you may look at. Should I be deferring my taxes? We've also learned this could be a family
So
decision.
basically, you're saying that I have a budget item that's called taxes, and I have an income item that's called Social Security, that's, in this case, $30,000. And I have a budget item called taxes, which is $10,000, which is not unreasonable considering the value, but considering what I've paid for it and my living there.
Right.
So you're saying you have a method I can take that budget item off the budget
Yes, you can not take it off, but push it off.
for that year?
Yeah,
Oh, I
take it off for that year to push it off. So how does the town manage to do this? Well, it's a state law that we've adopted, so we're going to do this, right? The options you have is to say, oh, I'm just going to put off some of it. You don't have to necessarily put off
Sure.
that whole 10,000. But the town expects to get that money back. So and then as homeowners come and go out of the program, we get that money back. And there is an interest rate assigned to the eventual payment of the deferred tax. For the current fiscal year, it's 2.33%
Right.
annualized, and it's not compounded. And that's based on the 10-year Treasury yield as adopted by town meeting. So we went to town meeting and said, we'd like to do something with this program. One was reduce the prior interest rate of 5% that we thought was, overly, burdensome,
Yeah.
5%. So now it's 2.33. Next year may go up with the 10-year Treasury yield change. But it's much better than 5, or even the base, what I'll call statutory interest rate in the law is 8%.
Mhm.
But the law also says, well, unless the town decides to do something different.
And we did.
And we did. And we're fortunate to be in Brookline in a number of ways. And one is town meeting's active in this area, that they'll listen to the select board or the assessors when we say, we'd like to change this program a little to make it more attractive and maybe for people, and maybe even increase the number of taxpayers that could be eligible. So I do want to mention that because we're regularly working on that, changing the rules, so to speak, to make it a more favorable program. So the interest rate was one way to do that, and the other was the income limit to qualify. So there's a test that some folks call it a means test. How do I qualify? Well, for the deferral, it's be the owner of the property, right? And be 65 years old as of July 1st.
Okay.
And have lived in that property for 5 years, all right, at least, all right? Then we have this income test. And the income test started out a number of years ago at $20,000. And the law says, yeah, but if the town wants to do something a little different, they could tie the income to a HUD figure that's also found in something called the income tax circuit breaker. So that's another program, but property taxes points to that in a way and says, let's use that income. It was $57,000. So up until this year, we were using the $57,000.
Right.
All right. So town meeting again agreed that we should do something about this, right? So the town, through the select board, filed a home rule petition with the legislature saying, we want to use an even higher number, and it's $86,000. All right. So one of the reasons we appreciate you having us on here is
And that's a number.
we want to talk about that, right? To go from a $57,000 income limit
Right.
up to 86, we're hoping that more taxpayers will say,
That's great.
I could qualify.
I have to tell you that we had a food insecurity program, and one of the basic reasons people don't have enough food is they're paying their real estate taxes. So I have to tell you that this is important. This is really important. So it's 86,000 now.
Right.
As of when?
That's a great question. So to get this law passed, we had to go through the legislative process.
Right.
And when we appreciate the support we received initially from a retiring representative, Frank Smizek's office, who filed this legislation for us last year, okay? Then it went to, Joint Revenue Committee, and it studied and all this. Went over to the Senate, and we had a champion there, Senator Cynthia Cream's office, to bring this through a process. Even though it's a home rule petition, it only applies to Brookline.
Right.
It goes through the whole process.
Sure.
So we learned that it's on the governor's desk today to be signed. So we put in a call to the governor just to make sure that he knows it's on his desk and that
Right.
he'll sign it.
And it's going to be on TV tonight.
And it'll be on there. So we're confident that the government, we have the
So
support of the government.
just to make
It's
sure
procedural.
everybody understands,
Yeah.
this is aired a week from now.
Yeah.
So when we air this, it will have been signed.
Will have been signed.
I guarantee.
Yeah. In fact, the governor legally has until Sunday to sign it, but we expect it today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he was busy doing other things
So other things this week. I
this
understand
week.
this.
So, but now, back to work.
Excellent.
Back to
Excellent.
work.
This
So we're
is-
excited about that.
Yeah, that is exciting.
You know, we believe that this is an underutilized program that could help some seniors who are looking to stay in their home and finding ways to achieve that financially. And $10,000 is a lot of money. We get that, all right?
Yeah, it is.
So we're looking at these tax relief programs, and this is the top of the list.
Yeah.
Karen works with the seniors in the program now and those who express interest. And so we did want to, have her
I
talk
would
about
love
that.
to hear,
Okay.
really, love to hear about actual, I know you can't tell me about people, but I'd like to hear actually what happens. What is the process and what are the people like? What actually happens?
So a senior homeowner, if they're having difficulty paying their property taxes,
Right.
one way to alleviate that is if they applied for the tax deferral program, which would allow them to take the money that they were paying for property taxes and use that for other living expenses.
Like food?
Food, anything that
or
they
anything
need,
else? Anything?
anything that they need. Part of it is
Transportation, I mean, anything.
anything,
Right.
anything that they need,
Right.
their choice. What happens, as Gary had touched on, the eligibility, so you do need to be age 65 as of July 1st.
Okay,
Own and occupy your home for 5 years.
5 years, okay.
Lived in Massachusetts for 10.
okay.
And then meet the income limit, which is going to be
86,000.
86,000, which would
When
be
the
a
show
big
airs.
benefit. Right, right.
That's excellent.
After that, the applicant signs a tax recovery agreement with the
Okay.
Board of Assessors. If there's any other owners for the property, they also have to sign.
Sure. What about banks?
As well as if there was a mortgage
No.
company. And we assist and help them get through that process.
And that's what you will do if someone walked in?
Absolutely.
Someone came into your office?
Yep.
You would lead them through that process?
We would lead them from the beginning to the end.
That's great.
At the end, there is a lien placed on the property.
Okay. What does that mean? Let's
So
explain.
the lien would be recorded at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds.
Okay,
And at the time when the owner either sells the property or passes away, at that point, the town will collect their money.
okay. That's basically what you've done is put off the collection of the money from the property, because it's got the value. You've put that off until, and taken it off your budget for that year, right? Now, you have to do this every year, right?
You do have to apply every year.
Okay, because you might not, I mean, it's possible that if for some reason you don't need it and you don't do it, or some other reason for a particular year. Could you then come back a year later and do it?
You
And-
can,
and
you
apply
can,
again?
you can, absolutely.
Each year is independent of the other.
So, we oftentimes we're asked, how long could someone stay in this program? What's the longest participant we have? It
So-
goes back into the 80s?
Yeah, early 80s. there's-
30 years.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So
Well-
is there a limit? We're often asked, right? And there is a limit in the law. It says you can't not defer more than half the value of your home. So let's go back to the $1 million home. You can defer up to $500,000 in
$1,000.
taxes. And, you know, nothing has come close to that, even that 30-year
Right.
deferral,
Right.
right?
Well,
So, you know, 30 years at 10,000 a year still only gets you to...
50 years.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
to 300,000.
Right.
And so that's not a worry,
Right.
we think, in this program,
No.
in Brookline. You know, this is, the same program exists throughout the state. We've customized it somewhat here because of the needs and the prices being high.
So the
here.
assessments are made each year?
Correct.
Okay. So obviously, if there's a crash, that particular year would be,
So a
But there'd be lower
recession,
taxes, too.
a recession or a downturn, we saw
Yeah.
that in 2007, 2008, and assessments declined or decreased slightly, you know, less than
Brookline,
10%, so to speak.
Right.
But since then, it's been extraordinary appreciation in real estate values. You know, we work every day, all day on assessments and taxes, and so we understand how to do that, but also how it impacts people of all types, all different owners. And you know, someone may tell us a story we've never heard, certainly, and we'd be happy to listen to those, but also assist. So one of the things Karen's and I both have learned is if there's somebody else in that home or in that family or a friend who could assist the senior with this process, we find those go more quickly through the process.
Oh, that's great.
You have to fill out this paperwork. We get that.
so in fact, could
but
they
if
even
you
go
had
to the
somebody helping
could
you-
they go to the senior center and get a social worker to help them fill out
Yes.
some of this paperwork?
So that's a good.
Yes.
So Deidre, what would you do in the tax deferral program, in this situation? And I want to get right down to the work-off program,
Yeah.
but I just want to know what your role is that, and then move on to the,
I would probably have nothing to do with this.
Deferral.
so what would you do? You'd send them
So
where?
we're, possibly the other social workers
Yes.
might have, we have social
Okay.
workers who do
Yes.
work with counseling and financial counseling, so they might help.
Karen?
We
Well,
do work
do you
with,
work with them?
there are a couple of social workers that have assisted senior taxpayers who are currently in the program, and one in particular, she helps her every single year from beginning to end.
Oh, great. So there's like, and in the worst case, if someone contacted you and asked about it, you would send them to Karen, I guess, or
Oh,
someone
yeah,
else.
I would definitely send them to Karen.
Right, so if I could hand off a little bit, so that, you know, we'd like any senior taxpayer who think that they might be interested in this to come and see us or call us.
Yep.
You know, if they're internet users, we have information on our website.
yep.
But the important thing is we're at Town Hall and we're accessible.
And everybody, please watch the end of the credits, because there will be information on contacting you guys and everything else.
Right,
that's on there.
and, you know, if we have to get back to you for any reason, we will certainly do that.
Right.
But another, if it's all right with you, you know, we do want to talk about another program, the senior work-off, a senior
Right.
tax work-off abatement program. It's one of the other programs that where it's been very successful. It's 10 years old, I believe, at this point. And we appreciate the Council on Aging and the Senior Center and the REAP project coordinator in the work they do to manage this. We're the tax administrators,
Right.
but they're the program administrators, and we're fortunate to have them. And,
So what about the work-off program? I know
So-
some people in it, so
I'm-
watch out.
Okay. No names, but we have currently 34 people in the program. We started the program in 2009 with 20 people in the program.
Very nice.
So not only did it get bigger, but you know, we were able to offer more
Does that include the
more
renters, or is
benefits.
that?
Renters is different. It's a completely different program.
Okay.
It's if you want me to tell you about that, I will. That's called the Estelle Cates program, but that
Right.
is not has really nothing to do with the town.
Okay.
That's sponsored basically by money that the senior center
Okay, so
offers.
let's concentrate on the.
So this is
concentrate on the work-off.
The tax work-off program is sponsored by the town of Brookline, and people come to us from for all different reasons and from all different places. One is, of course, from Gary and
Right.
Karen. They help us identify people. For example, I can tell you a story about someone who has been working for us as a dedicated volunteer for, I mean, years and years, and we had no idea that she needed assistance. So we heard from the assessor's office that she was in arrears. And we were able to offer her a place on the program like that, and she just began to do her exact same duties that she loved doing, and did them, now receiving an abatement of $1,500.
Yeah, 1,500, so it's equivalent for the 125 hours of service, it's equivalent to $12 an hour.
Yeah.
But it isn't a check you receive, like you write an employment check. It's a credit that you get against your tax,
Yeah.
but it's equivalent of $12 an hour.
Sounds like money to me.
1,500. And, you know, there's a lot of benefits, not just the money to reduce your tax, but if we
It's
can
a good
talk.
place to start, though.
You know, yeah, it is. There's both parties, we feel both parties are benefiting for the
Yeah,
senior
right.
work-off abatement program. We've had, we call volunteers because, again, you're not really getting paid, you're getting a credit. In our office, the senior work-off volunteers in our office the entire 10 years. And we've benefited, our office workload has benefited from having these volunteers tremendously. And sometimes we'll have 2 or 3 working at one time. And they could speak
In
for
your office.
themselves.
You're one of the
just in our
offices.
office, and there's others in town hall.
I know there's some in the
certainly.
library, I know that, you know, I've seen
Different
people,
departments
I've
around
met
town.
people who are doing that, they're very proud of it,
Yeah.
not the other way around. I mean, there's no apologies or anything like that, they're saying, you know, because they're doing work, I mean. and
Yeah, they're
clearly-
part of the group
Yeah.
that's working on this project
Absolutely.
or this process. We've also benefited from getting to know them, and that has always been enjoyable. And I think they can speak for themselves. I think they benefit as well from being, you know, back in the workforce a little bit, and at a few hours a day, perhaps.
And you benefit from the work.
And we do benefit from the work. So we think it's a good program. We go back to the select board on occasion to try to increase the number of participants, because in this case, the tax is forgiven. It's an abatement.
Yeah.
It's not deferred. And when that's the mechanism, you have to have sort of the town's buy-in to say, we're going to relieve some tax
Right, sure,
here,
sure.
and we'll make up for it
That's
somewhere
a
else.
Town budget. almost,
Town
yeah,
budget
right.
way thing. Yeah. So, I do want to tell you something.
Yeah, we're gonna run pretty tight. No.
No, that there's a deadline for filing
Oh, wow.
for these programs. Right?
What's the deadline,
April
Gary?
1st. So the
Oh, okay.
tax
I
year.
thought you were gonna say December 1st.
Yeah, tomorrow or something.
Right.
No, that's the governor's deadline, right? So, starts July 1st.
Okay.
And the deadline for getting in to any of these 2 programs and any of the other tax relief programs, and I do want to touch on some of the other programs, is April 1st. That coincides with the fourth quarter tax bill. We issue 4 tax bills per year in the town of Brookline instead of 1, right? So it's for a 12-month bill, but it's the idea behind 4 payments is to sort of even that out. And that last bill is sent out April 1, it's due May 1. But the deadline for filing for these relief programs is April 1, not May 1 when that last bill is due.
So the deadline is April 1.
1st.
April 1st.
Yeah, and
No Fool's
we have
Day,
no
nothing else.
flexibility on that.
So I want to ask you a question. I would like to, ordinarily the show would end now, but we're proceeding on something that's very important for people to work through, understand, and have available to them in the future online. They can go to Brookline Can, and they can see it on the website. They can go on the YouTube, and they can go on Big and see it here again and again. So this information is valuable and can be used. So I think we're going to extend this show, as long as they don't cut us off, we're going to extend the show another 10 minutes, if you're okay with that, and if you can stay.
Yes.
Because I'd like to continue and get through some more and review some of this, because it's worth it, I think. Are you okay? You can stay for the
Yes,
another 10
certainly.
minutes?
I'd be happy to.
Great,
Thanks,
thank
Matt.
you.
So whatever else Karen and Deirdre might want to offer, but I wanted to just make the viewers and the residents
Right.
of town aware that these aren't the only two programs, right? So tax relief, there are a number of other tax relief programs that are available, even for seniors, all right? There's a senior exemption.
Right.
And there's actually two senior exemption. So, and they're means tested as well. They're income based, and one of them has a whole estate. Like if you owned a second home, you probably wouldn't qualify for it. So there's a couple other programs that that provide some relief of $500 up to like $1,000 of annual relief. So we'd be happy to explain those programs over the phone.
Sure.
Or someone wants to come in. Beyond seniors, there's disabled veteran exemptions and visually impaired or blind exemptions that the state laws allow, that we administer for property tax relief. If you're not aware of those programs, we'd encourage you to call us.
Right.
And then Karen and I are here, but there's 8 assessors, right? So between support staff and assistant assessors, they all know about these programs. They can all answer questions. Some of the details, like who to reach out if you have a mortgage, Karen may have to handle that. But these
So if I'm coming in,
programs.
and looking for help, which is, and I want to ask questions for Karen or anybody else in the office, and I'm just walking in, and I'd like to find out if I can get an exemption, if I can get benefit of one of these programs. But I probably haven't paid my taxes yet, and I'm not sure if I'm in arrears or not. I might be, I might not be. And I'd rather not discuss that, I'd rather just discuss what the opportunities are and what the possibilities are. Am I looking for anybody coming after me for the taxes I'm late on, or anything else because of this, or am I
That's
somewhat
a good
insulated?
question. We don't want fear to be part of this in any way.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not the IRS, we're not the Department of Revenue, we're the local tax officials. The tax collector will send you a notice if you don't pay your taxes,
Sure.
and I'm glad you brought that up. The interest rate we talked about on the deferral, the 2.33%, that's if you're in the deferral program. That agreement, repayment agreement,
Right.
will say 2.33% for this fiscal year. Next fiscal year, very well maybe 3%, but it'll say that, 3% for that year. If you don't pay your taxes and just don't pay them, and you're not in this deferral, I hate to tell you what the interest rate is. It's 14%. So
It's what?
14% when you just don't pay your taxes. If you're delinquent in your tax
That's
bill,
egregious.
it's 14%.
Is that
And the
right?
town cannot change that. That's a state law, 14%. So there's a real incentive here not for that not to happen, right? So if you didn't pay
When do
this,
people pay their taxes instead of getting food?
14% is a big percent interest, a big number, right? And it's an annual percent interest prorated the number of days you didn't pay your tax. But you raise a good question. That's why that April 1st deadline is worth noting.
really important.
So if you say, oh, I didn't apply April 1st, but now I can't pay my May 1st bill,
Right.
and you come to me or Karen and say, I really need help with this, what's known as the fourth quarter bill. We can't do anything
We've
for
already had
that
that for you,
year.
right.
We can say, let's get you into this program for next year. But for the current year, this is a problem. The current year delinquency at 14%. This is one of the reasons I can tell you from my experience here is if someone else in that person's life, a friend, a neighbor, a relative, an associate from the senior center, or can help, ask them to help you. Because, it's not as bad as filling out an income tax return. It isn't that
No,
hard.
no.
But you have to fill out the paperwork.
And frankly, it's a benefit at the end, not a payment. So it's like,
there's certain requirements.
Right,
And
right.
we try to make them, easy to understand. But what we've learned is if you have someone helping you, it goes
Sure.
better. So we'd encourage that.
well, I think that's true in anything. It's especially something complicated. I mean, but in any case, in my opinion, right? In my opinion, if I not only go to a doctor, if I go to a lawyer, if I go to somebody else for anything, I'll bring somebody along just so they can either take notes or hear what hear what they said, so we get it straight. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely makes sense.
I think it makes sense here as
Yeah,
well,
it does.
if possible, right, if possible.
Right.
So, and I also had a follow-up to the senior center option is, yes, there's social workers there, but there's also volunteers who assist with preparing an application for any of these exemptions.
Right.
All right? And it's one of the senior work-off tax volunteers
Yeah.
that we've trained in our office, who goes up and has office hours at the senior center and helps other seniors fill out these forms. So that's a nice outreach. In addition to that, some
Can
organizations
you
send
identify them?
Sandy
Sandy Spector.
Sandy
Yeah, she's
Spector.
actually November now. This month is
Yeah.
a good time to get on board. Ask for Sandy Spector when you call the senior center if you want some more information about all these deferments.
Oh, that's great. That's
And I should say, you have a very nice one-pager online that describes all of
all the
them.
program. Right. But if you're more comfortable going to the senior center and talking to someone in person, that's
well, and you
available.
can see the flyers.
That's available.
You can either see the flyer there or online there or whatever.
Right, right.
You know, if you go to the senior center, you can
Right.
just
So the final,
Certainly
if
get
I
help.
could sort of throw this, a couple of final items. I talked about town meeting bringing, that's our local legislative body, right? Bringing some expanded opportunities to seniors. That happened in another way, and that's the creation of a tax aid committee and a tax aid fund for this fiscal year for the first time. That was adopted by town meeting for this fiscal year. And it's a check the box on your tax bill where you can donate, in addition to paying your taxes.
okay.
You can donate some money to this fund to help seniors, your neighbors, pay their bill.
I actually did see that.
So you could say, I'm paying my bill, I'm capable of paying my bill, I have the ability to pay this.
Yep.
And in addition, I'm going to send some money into this fund. So the money goes to the fund, and then the taxation aid committee will provide relief to those that apply. The application process is in progress right now. We'll have those applications available in December. And the
So
taxation...
the second date is December.
the middle of December, before that bill goes out at the end of December, the
Right.
tax bill. And the taxation
Oh, sure.
aid committee is made up of 5 individuals, myself, the chairman of the Board of Assessors, the tax collector, Gina Franconi, and then 3 citizens that the select board has appointed to
Oh,
the
that's great.
taxation aid committee. Terrific people who understand this problem. So there's this sort of the last step of providing relief opportunities that we've created to date is this taxation aid committee.
Okay.
And if you want to learn more about that, you can certainly call us.
Yeah, and I think that's true with everything. We're going to have to bring it to a close, but I think that's true with everything. I think people should not hesitate to call. You want to say the number, it's going to be on the credits. But give me your number or the contact. how to do
Sure.
it.
The assessor's office is 617-730-2060.
Okay, and they'll be able to get it there, also on the town website, they see it. The senior center, you want to give the senior center's number? although that's on
If you
there.
want to, if you have questions about the tax abatement program, you could call me at the senior center, 617-730-2767. Or the main number of the senior center is
Yeah, they know.
730-2777.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you
Thank you.
for, this has been fascinating, but more than fascinating, it's really important. So I really want to thank you for getting this out. I want to thank everybody for watching the show and for sitting and learning a lot, as I did today. And I want to remind you that it will be aired many times after this night. And it will also be available on the Brookline Can website and on the Twitter and Facebook accounts for Brookline Can. Thank you.